Hello and welcome to the Roker Report Lasses podcast in association with Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen and Her Game 2, the campaign against sexism and misogyny in football. My name's Rich Speight, and as Science by BigFatBig fades away, I'd like to welcome the singer of that song, Robyn Walker, for our special pre-Christmas podcast. How are you this morning, Robyn?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm alright, yeah, still a bit sore after last night's England men's loss. Were you watching the game?
I was, yeah. Well, I was in Edinburgh yesterday, so I was on a train, so I kept cutting in and out as if it wasn't already painful enough. But yeah, it was painful. That's the word for it, wasn't it, really? So, yeah.
It was, yeah.
Gotta just brush it off and move on.
But there you go, we've always got the lionesses and that.
Exactly.
And that might come up in a bit. Let's start with you, and let's start with music, shall we? Because things seem to be going really well. Your first EP was out in November, rocking and rolling and whatnot, and you've just been on tour around the UK. So how's the music industry treating you at the minute?
Honestly, this has been like the best year of my life, to be honest, in terms of music stuff. Like, I've been in bands and stuff since I was 16, and I've been doing this for like a really long time. So it's like really nice when like something happens the way you want it to happen, rather than having an idea of how you want something to go in your head and then it maybe not getting as good a reception as you wanted it to, or I don't know, just like the opportunities not falling your way. Which obviously since COVID we've had a lot of, like, nothing has gone the way anyone has wanted in the last couple of years. So that like you say, we've just been on tour with Martha, and they were just the best shows ever. So that was amazing. And then obviously the EP came out, and they're songs that we've worked really, really hard on, and that mean a lot to us, really. We've sat on them for a long time. So have them out finally it is surreal, to be honest. Like, it's scary in a way that like the songs that you didn't ever think anyone would hear, like the little ideas that you had that you weren't sure would ever see the light of day, are now like fully formed songs, and like literally anyone in the world can hear them if they wanted to. So it's like a bit intimidating, but the response has been amazing, and we're really proud of them. So it's been a good response to get from people that have actually listened to it. It's been really good.
No, I've been thoroughly enjoying it. I've been
thank you.
My earworm at the minute is Wrong Place, Wrong Time, which is a fantastic song. I really love it.
Thank you.
And that seems to have like a message in it about what it's like being from somewhere like Sunderland. Am I reading too much into the lyrics? Or
no, that's
a big part of it?
Yeah, no, that is exactly it. Like, I love Sunderland, and it's my home, and like I can talk about it all day long, how much I love it. But the opportunities for someone from here, rather than someone in maybe London or Manchester or a bigger city like that, you do have to work harder to get those opportunities. Like, that's just the cold hard fact. And regardless of that, even smaller, like even kind of more zoomed in to that point, like if you're from Sunderland and you've got money, like it's a lot easier than from someone who doesn't. And me and Katie, who is the guitarist in the band, we've kind of, I mean, we had everything we needed growing up, in terms of like our parents gave us everything they had, like, and they've always completely supported us in music and stuff like that. But in terms of like actual expendable money in our households, like that just wasn't a thing. Like, neither of us have ever had any tuition or like any lessons, or like Katie didn't have her own guitar until she was like 17, even though she'd played guitar from being like 9, because we just didn't have the money for those things, you know what I mean, like extra money. And like coming from like financial stability and stuff, like gets you so much further, like it just does. And even though that's not the fault of people who've got money, and we would never like blame those people, like sometimes it can be really frustrating to know that if we did just have extra money, like we could be doing more stuff than we are now, like the ripple effect of that. But like I say, our parents gave us absolutely everything that we could growing up, and it's shaped us to be like as hardworking as we are, and have the ethic that we do, and see the world in the way that we do. And I feel like that gives us like quite a unique perspective on things. So I wouldn't change it. It's just sometimes it gets a bit frustrating when you see people who maybe aren't, like, I don't know, haven't had to work as hard to get where they are, doing like huge, enormous, massive shows, and it's kind of treading the line between not wanting to become bitter or anything about it and using it as motivation to work harder. So that's kind of what that song is about.
No, I think it really rings true, and particularly at the minute when, people who are, working families just haven't got enough money
Exactly.
to survive to the end of the month, and they're using services like the soup kitchen increasingly. We talk to Andrea from the soup kitchen a lot, and she's telling us about especially kind of young mothers coming in who are working 2-3 jobs, working every hour God sends, and still really struggling to put food on the table for their kids, and through no fault of their own at all.
Exactly.
And I think
Yeah.
some of the lyrics in there that you said about how the poor do the sentence for the rich. I think that was such a poignant lyric at the minute, because it does seem that a lot of ordinary people are suffering for the mistakes of some very rich and powerful people. So
Exactly, yeah. And like how different things could be if they weren't born into this like circumstance. Like it's pure luck. It's like a roll of the dice. And like if you were unlucky enough to get like a crap hand, then that's your sentence for life. Like it's absolutely insane that that's the way that the world works, and like we get so angry about it. And like that is kind of the, like, I don't know, like that's the intention behind a lot of our lyrics and stuff, and so much stuff is unfair, and like even though that is the case, like we do just have to get on with it, as annoying as that is. But it doesn't mean that you can't write some angry songs about it to let off some steam.
No, of course you should, and that's what art's for, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
That kind of outlet, it's like that mirror that people hold up to society, really.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's really good that you've got, you've got the talent, you've got the platform now to get those messages out there. I think it's absolutely fantastic. We're going to flip backwards and forwards between music and football. Because that's hopefully going to be our audience, is music and football. But you said that you're from Sunderland, you're passionate about being from Sunderland. You're a football fan, as I understand it.
Yes, big Sunderland fan.
So Sunderland's been, I guess, a constant in your life since you were little?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because not as such, really. Like, I don't know whether it's because, obviously, like, being a little girl, it just wasn't really forced on us. Like, my dad's actually a Man U fan. Yeah, I know. So, like, that was... like, that just never sat, like, as a kid, like, I was never passionate about that, because, like, we weren't going to the games, because we're not from Manchester, so, I don't know, like, it's always been a constant in my life, in the way that I've always had friends that are massive football fans, and being in music, I'm surrounded by a lot of lads all the time, and it just does tend to be lads that are more involved in football and stuff. My boyfriend's like a huge Sunderland fan. We met when I was 16, so like we've been together a long time. So from that age, it's been like I've been kind of like checking the scores, and like we've been to the odd match here and there and stuff. But I've only really been like hugely involved in it for like just over a year, and it's like when I say it's taken over my life, it's like really taken over my life, because I can't just like something a little bit. Like that's a part of my personality. Like I can't just like kind of like something. I have to, if I like something, I'm obsessed with it, and it takes over every facet of my life. So I started going to every game last season. So I've been at like pretty much every home game bar a couple from last season. So it's not been like a constant in my life growing up as such, just because I don't come from like a massive sporting family or anything. But now as an adult, it's like really taken over my life. And I'm a big lads fan now. And once you start, that's it. There's no going back. So
you've been watching Lasses as well this season, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you find that? It's a different experience.
Yeah, I mean, obviously totally different, and it's a smaller crowd, and I'm actually, like, I went to Hitton School, so, like, it's really close to, so it's, like, really close to me. Like, I live in Easington Lane, like, my mum and dad live in Easington Lane, so it's, like, a 5-minute walk, really, from where I grew up and stuff. So we used to go and watch, like, the reserves play there when I was a kid, and yeah, like it's obviously totally different, like a lot more of a casual crowd, but I suppose like the people that go there are the ones that really care. Like they're the ones that are up at after o'clock on a weekend and going in the freezing cold to watch them, rather than being in the stadium. And it's like it is a lot more of a passionate crowd, so it's a really nice atmosphere, even though it's a lot smaller. And we haven't been to as many games as I'd like to have gotten to this season, to be honest, just because of the way that the fixtures have fallen, and like some of them are dead early in the morning. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a commitment if you're gonna go. So we went to a pre-season game and we went to the one at the stadium as well. I mean, that wasn't fun, was it? I think it was Birmingham City. Yeah, so it wasn't maybe the best one to go to, but I've been following from afar as well, and I definitely intend on getting to more fixtures when I can, because like I said, it's a lovely atmosphere and it's really convenient for me because it's dead close to where I live. So yeah,
that's really good. And there's often a lot of people talk about how it's not that convenient being in Hetton rather than in the city centre.
No, it's literally like right next to mine, so it's the opposite for me.
For the people in that part, in East Durham, in the south of Sunderland, it's in some ways it's more convenient, isn't it? But those are like the girls playing for Sunderland. They're like your peers, really. They're girls your age from kind of Sunderland surrounding area. They're probably working part-time and following their passion in football on kind of evenings and weekends, in the hope of kind of making it and doing it full-time, doing it in the big time. Do you see parallels between women in the football industry, young women in the football industry, young women in the music industry? You talk about how, music's dominated by lads.
Yeah.
Do you see there's parallels there?
Yeah, 100%. Like, that's actually a really good point. Like, especially the point that you just brought up about how they're having to work part-time as well. Like, nothing is just given to us. Like, I mean, if we ever get to do music full-time, it'll be a miracle because of like how little money there is in it. And you've got to really love it to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so much extra work and it's so much commitment to give to something that, like, if you don't love it, then you're just putting yourself through hell for no reason. And that'll be exactly the same with the lasses, especially like from the physical aspect of it. Like, they'll be absolutely knackered day in, day out, like training as hard as they train, playing as many games as they play, putting themselves through like the injuries that some of them pick up and stuff like that. Like, you don't do that unless you absolutely love it. So like, being passionate about something that maybe doesn't pay dividends straight away, or maybe if ever, like, it's a risk to put yourself through that. Like, I can definitely relate to them in that way. But like, obviously, I mean, I could never do what they do. Do you know what I mean? I could definitely never do what they do. But in that way of like, they clearly love what they do, and they love the city and they love the club, and like 100% can relate to them in that way. There's definitely a lot of similarities and a lot of crossover between that.
No, there definitely is, and obviously the profile's getting bigger through the Lionesses, but and I guess in the music industry as well, you've got some women who are right at the top of the industry and the kind of the biggest names in it.
Exactly, yeah.
But then you've got a lot of women who face those kinds of structural barriers as well, through having to work, not having given the opportunities as a kid, having maybe caring responsibilities, other things like that do kind of get in the way. And it brings us to, like, obviously we use your song Science as a theme tune for this, and thank you so much for yourself and Katie for letting us use your art royalty free in that sense. It's absolutely brilliant.
We were buzzing to be asked. Honestly, we were like so excited when we were asked. We were like, that's so cool that like it's being used for something like this, you know what I mean? Like a platform for like talking about women doing great things. Like, that's exactly what the kind of thing that we want it to be used for. So we were like we were buzzing to be asked. So yeah.
No, well, your music was first kind of raised to me and first probably featured on Roker Report when Catherine Robinson, the artist, mentioned you in an article that I did with her about art and football. Because obviously she's been doing a lot of stuff, the season card art, and I said, what is the music that kind of inspires you? She'd like to put a little bit of music in all those articles, and she said it was one of your tracks.
She's the best. Like, that's so nice to hear. I read that article at the time and remember thinking like, oh, that's just so lovely. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you read stuff like that, it does make it all worthwhile. So, and you get cool opportunities like that. So
yeah. It's all part of the culture of the city, really, isn't it? But I wanted to ask you a little bit about the lyrics that we close our podcast with: chemistry, biology, toxic misogyny. Still haven't had a single apology. It seems to be like a message there, or it seems to like resonate with some of the experiences of maybe women in football and in music, and some of the kind of experiences of fans of women's football, especially online, where there's a lot of kind of just hatred on the basis of the gender of the person performing, whether it's a musician or a footballer. So
Yeah.
kind of what's the story behind those lyrics? Where did you and Katie kind of come up with them from?
Yeah, so that was like Science was the first song we ever wrote together.
Wow.
Like that was before we even decided it was for a band. Like we've been friends for so many years. We've been friends since we started secondary school. We both went to Hetton School, and we've always like music's been like a huge part of our friendship like that whole time. But in terms of writing together, we'd never done that. I'd always been in other bands and stuff, and it kind of got to a point in our lives where we were both just angry about a lot of things, but like really inspired by a lot of people. So we thought we'll try writing some things together. We'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens. And Science was the first song that we ever wrote together. We wrote it in Katie's mum's house in our old bedroom before she moved out. And it was, to be honest, the same way that a lot of our songs start. It was like one single, very small occurrence that had happened that, like, when you talk about it, it doesn't sound like much, like it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's not the point, you know what I mean? Like, it's not the point that it's one small thing, because one small thing happens all the time. Like, one small thing happens on a weekly basis, you know what I mean? And when you're a minority in like an industry that's dominated by men, and not even like less than that, Science was inspired by something. I don't think it was anything to do with music. It was just someone being awful to a woman. Like, that, it was even smaller than that. It was like inspired by some, like, Katie had a poor experience with a man, and that's what inspired that song. And a lot of our music comes from very small instances that might not mean a lot to someone else, but because we are so exposed to that all the time, it gets boring. Do you know what I mean? Like, it gets boring, like the same thing all the time. And it could be just like the smallest little thing that happens that like makes us annoyed. Like, that's annoyed me. That's like, I don't want you to talk to me like that. I don't want like you to have those ideas of me. And that was definitely the case for Science. Some of our songs are about bigger things and like more societal issues and stuff like that. And a lot of it does come from that too. But when you break down those like huge societal problems, they start at the very bottom. They start with like very small passive aggressive comments and like little instances that don't sound like very much. But when you add them all up, that's what is causing the issue, if that makes sense. Like, all of these big problems have to start somewhere, you know what I mean? And Science came from like a very small, maybe insignificant to other people, occurrence that Katie had like a bad experience with a man, and that came from that's the kind of first thing that we ever managed to write together as a band. So even though it's not like a huge, like, no one hate crimed us in that instance, you know, like not all discrimination has to be big. It can just start off as really small, and like, you shouldn't stand for any of it. We shouldn't stand for any of it. We should call it all out at the first instance. I feel like Science is a good example of that, because it was just like a few little things that had happened, but like, we still shouldn't have to put up with that. It's not the point. It's not the point. It's that it's not a big thing. It's still not okay.
And it normalises it, doesn't it? It normalises people being horrendous to each other. It normalises women being put down.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a cultural thing.
Completely. And, you know, there's a lot of that in the culture at the minute, of this coarseness and like an uncaringness in society. But on the flip side, there's a lot of people who do care. A lot of people who will kind of grasp your lyrics and your music and what you're trying to say, and take kind of comfort from it, but also kind of feel, I guess, validated, and that there's other people who are feeling and thinking and want to write about and want to kind of use their voice to kind of talk about these things. And we're here obviously raising money for the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen at the minute for our Roker Report Christmas Appeal, which is, it's such an amazing charity. Obviously does wonderful work in the community, helping anyone who comes through the door. And actually, I think if you listen to Andrea, there'll be a podcast on the main Roker Report feed, talks a lot about how she was kind of inspired by people who were almost turned away by the rest of the system.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's those small things, a person who can't get help because they've got a dog can't get help because they've got an addiction, can't get help because they don't meet a certain criteria or a certain threshold, but in that moment they need the help. That's kind of where their whole charity came from. But obviously at the minute it's that issue with food poverty and inflation and the kind of cost of living and stuff. What are your thoughts about kind of what they do, what the Soup Kitchen and other charities like that do on food poverty and maybe how it links with, I guess, gender and some of the issues that women face in society?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say about, like, the criteria tick box thing. I've heard of instances of people being refused help because of, like, their postcodes, like, one digit out and stuff like that. Like, I've been close to people who, like, it's like a capture thing, like they're one digit out of the correct postcode catchment area, which is, like, insane. Like, if someone needs help, they need help. And, like, we are so lucky to have the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen and institutions like that and organisations like that step up and help where, like, it's not their responsibility. Like, it should not be their responsibility. This is such a bigger issue. It's down to the big dogs at the top that are just too lazy and too blind to do anything about it. And, like, what's the alternative? Like, if they aren't there helping, what do people die? Like, people go hungry, people go cold, like, people don't have a community, people don't have friends, they don't have anyone to talk to, and, like, the implications of something like that are so much bigger than just, like, oh, well, like, we sorry, like, no, like, you don't hit our criteria. So, like, that's such the thing that they're being turned away for is so much smaller than the issue that is being caused by them turning them away. It makes absolutely no sense. And I just think at the end of the day, like, if we don't have organisations like the Soup Kitchen and volunteers that put in so many hours to help, those people will go hungry. They will, because no one else cares. Like, people at the top don't care, which is the harsh reality of it. And even though it isn't their responsibility, I'm just so thankful that there are people that do care enough to take on a responsibility that's so huge and, like, so it must feel like a lot, you know, like, to have so many people relying on you, especially at, like, this time of year as well, when everyone's being pulled in every direction. Like, as a city, like, we're so lucky to have these people here that care so much and so clearly about the people who it might seem to them that no one else does care, and certainly not the government and anyone else at the top. Like, they're not going to do anything about it. So even though it's not their responsibility and it shouldn't be their responsibility, I just feel thankful to them, really, because otherwise people will just go hungry. That's the top and bottom of it, really, isn't it?
It really is. And there's lots of kind of change, lots of development going on in Sunderland right now. You know, big new buildings, big building projects, new bridge over the Stadium of Light and stuff like that. It's all good to see in many senses. And obviously you've got the fire station, which is amazing. Have you played there yet? Or are you due to play there? Or?
No, I know I've been there a couple of times. We were there for Waves Festival, which was amazing. There was a couple of bands on there that were great, and the venue's amazing. And then I'll be back there in, I think it's January or February, for the Faith and Tarot fundraiser.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be at the fire station as well. So it's a great venue. We definitely want to play there at some point. But they're doing a lot of good stuff at the minute as well.
Yeah, and obviously all our kind of best wishes and hopes for kind of the funds that being raised for Faith at the minute as well is a big thing, and in my family as well, we've got connections to Faith and stuff. So it's terrible situation, and
it's awful.
Out her and her family and friends, all that's going on. But there's also the kind of the community institutions in and around the city in the music scene. There's the Bunker, there's Pop Rex and people like that. How important have they been, those kind of the people who on the kind of the music side, the cultural side, put their kind of hearts and souls into helping young people, helping people who maybe don't have the opportunities to get into the music industry? Have they been a real big kind of boost to your ability to get into the industry?
100%. I think, like, without these venues and without, like, the support from the people that run them, and like you say, the Bunker and stuff, like, I've practiced at the Bunker like my entire musical career. Like, I still practice there now. Like, that's where we go to rehearse. without those people and without the support from those people, I just don't think we'd be doing what we do. Like, I just don't think we would think there was any point to it, really. Like, especially like the lads at Pop Rex and Independent have been like huge for us in giving us opportunities and like just giving us a stage when like no one else would, you know what I mean? Like my first ever gig before BigFatBig, like my first ever show that was original music was at the old Pop Rex, and like they didn't have to give us that opportunity, you know what I mean? And like it's the encouragement in the early stages of someone's professional like career that really matters to them. Like if we'd had bad experiences, I might have just chucked it in and said I'm not doing it, you know what I mean? Like there's no point in me putting myself through this because it's hard. It's like a really hard business and a really hard industry to get into, but I owe a lot of especially like I'd say the likes of the lecturers at Sunderland College, Pop Rex, Indie, The Bunker, like all of those people who've been there, done it, you know what I mean? Like they've had their original careers and stuff like that and then decided that they want to help other people do the same thing, and I just don't think we would be doing what we do if it wasn't for the encouragement of the folk at all of these institutions. And like once again, we're just really, really lucky to have them in the city.
No, we are, and it's those people who kind of spend their lives, their careers, trying to give opportunities to other people. That's what the Soup Kitchen does. That's what Bunker and Pop Rex and I say Independent and people who work in education as well. That's what they're doing all the time, and the fruits of that are in people like yourself and Katie and your band's being more successful, and we really hope that more people will listen to you and find where can they find you, like everywhere?
Everywhere. We are everywhere. We're relentless. You can find us everywhere. So there's no other bands called BigFatBig because it's a stupid name. So if you search it, then you find us. You know what I mean? Like we are on every platform. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on TikTok. Our music's on Spotify, every streaming service. So you can find that everywhere as well. And we've still got some copies of it. We've got some cassettes still. If anyone wanted to buy any, you can get them through the label Demon TV. So yeah, we're pretty much everywhere. We're easy to find. We've made ourselves easy to find.
You've got gigs coming up. Is it in February? You're in Sunderland playing?
Yes, yeah. So we've got our first ever show was a headline show, and then we haven't done one until now. So this is our second ever headline show, which is in the Ship Isis in like the Folks Rooms upstairs. And that's on the 11th of February. So we've got a couple of tour dates in February, and this is going to be the last one. So like a big fun headline show. And it has actually sold quite well so far. So hopefully it'll sell out. So if you do want to come, you might as well buy a ticket now.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely. And I've been looking at some of your YouTubes as well, and they're quite fun with you and Katie talking to camera and having a good crack on. So people can find you there as well, can't they?
Yeah, it's fun. It's just we just like to talk about things really, and so like any platform that'll let us chat a load of crap, then we're up for it, you know. So YouTube's a good one for that. Some long form content on there. It's not a consistent thing. It's just as and when we feel like it, because it's uploading to a schedule is just not for us. So every now and then we'll post to YouTube. It's good fun. It's a laugh.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I just want to sign off really. Obviously, if anyone has some spare cash, if you can give whatever you can to the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen this Christmas, it'll make an awful lot of difference to some of the most vulnerable people in our society, in our city. And all the links for that are on the podcast description, all over Roker Report and Roker Report Lasses social media. So please do that. Very briefly on a personal note, after kind of 3 and a bit years, this is the last podcast I'm recording for Roker Report, as I'm stepping back to concentrate on a couple of other things, including working on poverty, anti-racism, climate change in my community where I live. But I really hope that the other lads and lasses, Aunt Charlotte, Graham, Katie, and everyone else who's worked with us to build Roker Report, the lasses, over the last 9 months, will get all of your support as listeners and readers as they continue to kind of provide coverage for the Sunderland women's team. And for me, it's just been like an absolute privilege to talk and write about Sunderland to the thousands of readers and listeners of Roker Report. And I've had the opportunity to speak to Kira Ramshaw, John Byrne, Jen O'Neill, Peter Reid, Mel Ray, Luke O'Nine, Steph Bannon, Beth Mead, Niamh Heron, Gemma Wilson, loads and loads and loads of people, and I've made some very good friends and one or two enemies along the way, but it's definitely time for me to move on. And basically, I wanted to ask if there's anyone out there who does love Sunderland women's football, loves the Lasses, loves Sunderland AFC, and wants to write and edit a podcast about them. There's a vacancy there now, I guess, and you'd be very welcome. You just need to contact Roker Report or Roker Report the Lasses on social media. So, I again signpost everyone to listen to the podcast that's going to come out with Andrea Bell from the Soup Kitchen. And so that's it from me. And thank you very much, Robyn, for your time this morning.
Thanks for having us. It's been lovely.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone for listening. And away the Lasses. Ta-ra.
We're the Lasses.
Chemistry, biology, toxic misogyny, still haven't had a single apology. Chemistry, biology, toxic misogyny, still haven't had